The smallest act of courage can change a life you have never met. My name is Emily Carter, and until that Tuesday afternoon, I believed I was living an ordinary life. I was 28 years old, a second-grade teacher at a small elementary school outside Chicago, and most of my days followed the same predictable rhythm. Morning attendance, reading lessons, lunch duty, parent emails, then home to my quiet apartment and a stack of papers waiting to be graded. Nothing about my life suggested that destiny was preparing something extraordinary just around the corner. The day began like any other. Bright autumn sunlight poured through the classroom windows. Children's laughter echoed through the hallways. The scent of freshly sharpened pencils mixed with the faint smell of cafeteria pizza drifting through the building. Everything felt normal, safe, familiar. Around 2 o'clock, my students were working quietly on a writing assignment when I noticed one of them staring nervously out the window. His name was Ethan. He had transferred to our school only a few months earlier. Polite, intelligent, quiet. There was always something different about him, though I could never quite explain it. He carried himself with a maturity uncommon for a 9-year-old. As dismissal approached, I gathered my things and headed outside for afternoon supervision. The playground sat beside a row of maple trees whose leaves had turned brilliant shades of orange and gold. Children raced across the blacktop while parents began arriving near the pickup area. Then I saw it. Near the far end of the playground, Ethan stood alone beside the fence. 3 older boys from another grade surrounded him. Their body language immediately caught my attention. Ethan looked uncomfortable. The other boys seemed determined to corner him with teasing and intimidation. I started walking toward them. At first, I expected the situation to dissolve on its own. Children sometimes argued. It happened every day. But something felt different. Ethan's shoulders were tense. His eyes searched for a way out. One of the older boys stepped closer. Another blocked the opening beside the fence. Without thinking, I quickened my pace. "Is there a problem over here?" I asked firmly as I approached. The boys immediately stepped back. Their confidence vanished the moment an adult entered the situation. They mumbled excuses and wandered away toward the parking lot. Ethan remained silent. His face looked pale beneath the afternoon sunlight. "Are you okay?" I asked. He nodded, though his expression suggested otherwise. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he surprised me. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Most people do not notice." Something about those words stayed with me. Most people do not notice. I smiled and told him every student deserved to feel safe at school. He looked down for a moment before offering a small smile in return. Minutes later, a black luxury SUV pulled into the pickup lane. It stood out among the minivans and family sedans. The driver remained inside while Ethan gathered his backpack. Before leaving, he glanced back one final time. "Thank you, Miss Carter." Then he disappeared into the vehicle. I watched the SUV drive away beneath the golden trees, unaware that someone inside had witnessed everything. Someone powerful. Someone who never forgot a debt. And at that moment, without realizing it, my ordinary life quietly began to change. The next morning, I arrived at school carrying a cup of coffee and a stack of lesson plans, expecting another ordinary day. The autumn air felt crisp, and the first rays of sunlight painted the parking lot in shades of gold. Children hurried toward the entrance with oversized backpacks bouncing against their shoulders. Parents exchanged quick goodbyes before rushing off to work. Everything looked exactly as it always had. Yet for reasons I could not explain, I found myself glancing toward the pickup lane where the black SUV had disappeared the day before. The thought vanished as quickly as it arrived. I had responsibilities waiting inside. By lunchtime, the rhythm of teaching had taken over. Reading exercises, group activities, endless questions from curious second graders. Their energy filled every corner of the classroom. Ethan sat quietly near the window, focused on his work as usual. Several times I noticed him looking toward me as though he wanted to say something. Each time he changed his mind and returned to his assignment. Near the end of the day, the school principal appeared at my classroom door. That alone was unusual. She rarely interrupted lessons unless something important required attention. "Emily, do you have a moment after dismissal?" she asked. Her expression remained pleasant but slightly mysterious. I agreed, assuming it involved a student conference or administrative paperwork. 40 minutes later, after the final bell rang and the last student left, I walked toward her office. The hallway had grown quiet. The cheerful noise of children had been replaced by the distant hum of air conditioning and the occasional squeak of a janitor's cart. When I entered the office, I immediately noticed a large bouquet of white lilies sitting on the desk. My principal smiled. "These arrived for you." I stopped walking. "For me?" She nodded. Attached to the arrangement was a small card. No company name. No signature. Just a single sentence written in elegant handwriting. "Thank you for seeing what others ignored." I stared at the message. The words felt strangely familiar. Most people do not notice. Ethan's voice echoed in my memory. Before I could ask more questions, my principal explained that the flowers had been delivered by a professional courier, who refused to provide additional information. The mystery followed me throughout the evening. Back at my apartment, I placed the lilies on the kitchen table and studied the card again. The handwriting looked deliberate. Careful. Expensive if handwriting could somehow appear expensive. I laughed at myself for thinking such a thing. Still, curiosity lingered. Over the next several days, small coincidences began appearing around me. A difficult grant application for my classroom received unexpected approval. A shipment of educational supplies arrived weeks ahead of schedule. The school received a generous anonymous donation that funded new technology for several classrooms. Everyone celebrated the good news. No one questioned it. Yet I could not shake the feeling that an invisible hand had quietly altered the course of several lives. Friday afternoon arrived with cold winds and gray skies. As students prepared to leave, Ethan approached my desk carrying a folded piece of paper. He hesitated before placing it in front of me. "My father wanted me to give you this," he said softly. Then he hurried away before I could ask any questions. I unfolded the note after dismissal. Written in the same elegant handwriting as the card was a short message. Some acts of kindness deserve to be remembered. Beneath the sentence was an address and a time. Saturday, 7 o'clock. For the first time, I felt certain the mystery surrounding Ethan and the black SUV was finally about to reveal itself. Saturday arrived wrapped in gray clouds and cool autumn air. From the moment I woke up, the folded note remained on my kitchen counter like a question waiting for an answer. I must have read the address a dozen times. Part of me wanted to ignore it completely. Another part could not stop thinking about it. The mysterious flowers. The anonymous donations. The unexpected improvements at school. Everything seemed connected by an invisible thread leading toward one person. By 6 o'clock that evening, curiosity finally won. I drove across the city with the note resting on the passenger seat. The farther I traveled, the more unfamiliar the neighborhoods became. Small houses gradually gave way to elegant estates hidden behind stone walls and iron gates. The address led me to one of the most impressive properties I had ever seen. Warm lights illuminated the driveway. Tall oak trees lined the entrance. Beyond them stood a massive estate overlooking a private lake that reflected the fading sunset. I parked slowly, suddenly aware that my modest teacher's salary belonged to a very different world. Before I could second-guess myself, the front door opened. A man in a dark suit greeted me politely and escorted me inside. The interior was breathtaking. Marble floors stretched beneath crystal chandeliers. Large windows framed views of the water. Expensive artwork decorated the walls. Yet despite the luxury, the atmosphere felt surprisingly calm, comfortable, human. As we walked through the house, I noticed family photographs. Displayed on several tables. Many included Ethan, smiling at birthday parties, fishing beside the lake, holding school awards. For the first time, I realized the quiet boy from my classroom belonged to this extraordinary world. The assistant guided me toward a glass-walled study overlooking the water. "Mr. Romano will be with you shortly," he said before leaving. The name stopped me cold. Romano. I had heard it before. Newspapers, business magazines, local news reports. Vincent Romano was one of the most powerful businessmen in Illinois. His companies owned hotels, construction firms, technology investments, and charitable foundations throughout the region. Suddenly, every mystery from the past week made sense. The flowers, the donations, the influence. Before I could process the realization, the study door opened. Vincent Romano entered quietly. He was taller than I expected. Dark hair, calm blue eyes, perfectly tailored suit, confidence without arrogance. He carried himself like a man accustomed to responsibility rather than attention. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he smiled. "Miss Carter." His voice was steady and surprisingly warm. "Thank you for coming." I managed a small smile. I was not sure if I should. He nodded. "That is understandable." Vincent motioned toward 2 chairs near the window. The lake shimmered beneath the evening sky. We sat across from one another as silence briefly settled between us. Finally he spoke. "Ethan talks about you often." The admission surprised me. "He does." Vincent smiled slightly. "More than you realize." I glanced toward the lake. "You did not have to send flowers. Or donations." "Perhaps not," he said. "But gratitude should be expressed." His answer sounded simple. Honest. Yet I sensed there was more beneath the surface. Then Vincent leaned back slightly and looked directly at me. "Most people see influence, wealth, success." His gaze softened. What I saw that afternoon was someone willing to step forward when nobody else did. The room fell quiet again. Outside, the final colors of sunset faded across the water. For reasons I could not explain, I suddenly felt less intimidated by him. Behind the reputation, behind the headlines, behind the power, there was a father sitting across from me who had never forgotten a single moment on a school playground. And somehow, that realization felt far more important than anything I had learned about Vincent Romano from the news. The conversation continued long after the sun disappeared beyond the lake. Soft lights reflected across the water outside the study windows, while a quiet warmth settled over the room. Vincent spoke about Ethan with the kind of pride only a devoted father could possess. Every story revealed another side of the man sitting across from me. Not the businessman from newspaper headlines. Not the powerful figure people whispered about. Simply a father who cared deeply about his son. At one point, he walked to a nearby shelf and picked up a framed photograph. Ethan stood beside him holding a fishing rod almost twice his height. Both of them were laughing. The image felt genuine, unscripted, real. "That was his first catch," Vincent said. I smiled. "He looks proud." Vincent nodded. He was. For a brief moment, his expression softened completely. Then he placed the photograph back on the shelf and returned to his chair. The evening moved easily after that. We spoke about teaching, about books, about childhood memories. To my surprise, Vincent listened carefully to every answer. Most people heard words. He seemed to study meaning. Nearly 2 hours passed before I finally glanced at the clock. "I should probably go," I said. Vincent stood immediately. "Of course." As we walked toward the front entrance, a sudden storm began rolling across the lake. Rain tapped softly against the windows. Distant thunder echoed through the darkness. "Looks like the weather made that decision difficult," Vincent said with a faint smile. I laughed quietly. "Apparently." Before either of us could continue, one of the household staff members approached carrying a tablet. His expression remained professional, but I noticed a subtle urgency. Vincent reviewed something on the screen. His calm demeanor shifted slightly. Not dramatically, just enough for me to notice. He handed the device back and thanked the employee before turning toward me. "I apologize," he said. "There is a business matter that requires attention." "You do not need to apologize." He hesitated briefly. "Would you allow my driver to take you home?" Normally I would have refused. Yet the rain had intensified, and the roads were becoming difficult to see. "Thank you," I replied. "That would be helpful." Vincent personally escorted me to the covered driveway. The black SUV waited beneath glowing exterior lights. Rain fell in silver sheets around us. Before I entered the vehicle, he surprised me with a simple question. "Do you enjoy teaching?" I smiled. "Very much." He nodded thoughtfully. "Good. Why?" For a moment he looked toward the rain-covered lake. "Because children remember the adults who show up when it matters." The words lingered in the air between us. Then he opened the vehicle door. During the drive home, I replayed the conversation repeatedly. Something about Vincent Romano refused to fit the assumptions I had formed. The wealth, the influence, the reputation. None of it matched the man I had spent the evening with. When I finally reached my apartment building, the driver handed me a small envelope. "Mr. Romano asked me to give you this after the trip." Confused, I opened it immediately. Inside was a handwritten note. "Thank you for giving Ethan something money cannot buy." Beneath the sentence sat a single photograph. It showed a school playground taken from a distance. In the center stood Ethan, and beside him stood me. I stared at the image as rain continued falling beyond the windshield. For the second time in 2 weeks, I realized someone had been paying attention long before I ever noticed. The next morning, the sunlight streamed through my apartment window, casting warm patterns across the floor. Yet the memory of the previous night lingered in my mind. As I sipped my coffee, I recalled the photograph Vincent had given me, the handwritten note, the quiet intensity with which he spoke about Ethan. It was not simply the gestures of a wealthy man, but those of someone who noticed the small yet meaningful moments, who understood what truly mattered in life. That morning I prepared for the school day, thinking about how to approach my students, how to make learning feel engaging and important. As I arrived at the school, the familiar chatter of children filled the hallways, a comforting rhythm that made me feel at home despite the earlier complexities. I noticed Ethan in the playground, smiling and waving to friends, completely unaware of the adult dynamics unfolding around him. Watching him, I felt a deep responsibility and an unexpected connection to both him and his father, a realization that shaped my perspective for the day. Classes passed quickly, and during recess, a situation arose where one of the younger students tripped and fell, scraping their knee. I immediately rushed to assist, carefully calming the child and helping them back to the bench, applying the first aid I had learned over the years. It was a small act, yet I sensed that every moment I chose to be attentive mattered. Later, as I walked through the school corridors, Vincent unexpectedly appeared, quietly observing from a distance, not intruding but present. His calm presence was reassuring, almost protective, and I felt the weight of his attention without it being burdensome. We exchanged a brief smile, a silent acknowledgement of the morning's events, the subtle interplay of care and observation. Lunch passed in quiet reflection, and by afternoon, I noticed students interacting more openly, laughter filling the rooms where before they had been timid or hesitant. It was a small transformation, yet profoundly satisfying. As the school day drew to a close, I helped organize activities for Ethan and his friends, ensuring that everyone felt included and heard. The day ended with a quiet sense of accomplishment, a feeling that perhaps my actions had created ripples beyond my immediate awareness. When I finally stepped outside, the golden light of late afternoon bathed the playground, casting long shadows that danced as children ran and played. Vincent stood by the entrance, watching silently, a composed figure amidst the chaos of youthful energy. Our eyes met briefly, and I felt a profound understanding between us, an unspoken recognition of shared purpose and mutual respect. Walking toward my car, I realized that the morning's events had strengthened a bond built on observation, empathy, and care, leaving me with a renewed sense of responsibility and a deeper appreciation for the subtle ways our actions affect those around us, all while quietly acknowledging the influence of the man who had purchased not just a home but an opportunity for connection and growth. The evening descended with a golden hue, and as I walked through the quiet streets toward my apartment, I reflected on the events of the day and the subtle yet profound interactions that had unfolded. Vincent's presence lingered in my thoughts, not as an imposing figure, but as someone whose careful attention had quietly shaped the environment around me, influencing both Ethan and the other children with an understated yet powerful sense of protection. Arriving home, I prepared a simple dinner while mentally reviewing the lessons I had taught, and the moments where small gestures had made a meaningful difference in the students' confidence and comfort. As I sipped my tea, the phone vibrated, and it was a message from Vincent, brief yet thoughtful, suggesting a meeting to discuss Ethan's progress and the ways in which we could ensure his continued growth and happiness. The tone of his words carried warmth and genuine concern, reflecting a deeper understanding of responsibility and care, not just for the child but for the environment he thrived in. After dinner, I decided to take a short walk to clear my mind, the cool night air brushing against my face as I contemplated the unexpected bond that had begun to form between us, a connection built not on wealth or power, but on observation, empathy, and shared purpose. Passing the school on my route, I saw the lights still on in the classrooms, a reminder that learning and guidance continued beyond the walls I had grown accustomed to, and it underscored the importance of our collective efforts. The streets were calm, with the faint sounds of distant traffic and the occasional laughter of late-returning children, a symphony of everyday life that highlighted the contrast between the calm and the undercurrent of change in my own routine. Returning to my apartment, I organized materials for the next day, ensuring everything was ready, a silent ritual of preparation and reflection that brought me a sense of order and clarity. Vincent's figure appeared briefly outside my window, unobtrusive yet noticeable, a subtle affirmation of his commitment and attention, reminding me that support could be present without intrusion. As I settled into an armchair with a book, the words blurred slightly as my mind revisited Ethan's smiles, the conversations with his friends, and the reassuring glance exchanged with Vincent earlier in the day, moments that collectively reinforced a sense of continuity and care, highlighting the profound impact of small, intentional actions on the lives of those around us. The night deepened, yet a sense of calm purpose settled within me, a recognition that the day's events had strengthened bonds, enhanced understanding, and created a space where observation and care interwove seamlessly, leaving me with a quiet anticipation for what tomorrow might bring. The morning sunlight filtered softly through the curtains as I prepared breakfast, the aroma of coffee blending with the subtle hum of the city waking up outside, and I felt a quiet anticipation for the day ahead, knowing that today would bring unexpected moments of connection and reflection. Vincent's presence had grown more tangible over the past days, not through grand gestures but through careful attentiveness, his footsteps and glance a silent reassurance of his watchfulness over Ethan and the environment we both nurtured. As I watched Ethan play quietly with his friends at the breakfast table, I noticed the small but significant ways in which he expressed comfort and trust, gestures that spoke volumes about the influence of our collective care, the sense of security he felt in our shared space, a space that Vincent's presence helped stabilize with subtle yet undeniable authority. Later, while organizing lessons for the afternoon, I received a brief message from Vincent suggesting a check-in regarding Ethan's progress, the tone thoughtful and considerate, revealing a careful balance of concern and respect for boundaries, an approach that resonated with the values of empathy and observation I had long practiced. Walking to the school to meet him, the city streets buzzed with morning energy, the distant chatter of parents and children mingling with the rhythmic pulse of urban life, highlighting the contrast between the routine and the unfolding narrative of care and guidance we cultivated together. Meeting Vincent at the entrance, his expression was calm, deliberate, yet undeniably kind, the subtle warmth in his demeanor suggesting a depth of understanding that transcended his outwardly composed exterior, a reminder that strength often comes paired with quiet vigilance. As we toured the classroom, observing Ethan interact with peers and respond to challenges, I noted the way Vincent's presence, though unobtrusive, seemed to create an invisible framework of support, enhancing confidence and encouraging autonomy without overt direction. The morning progressed with discussions about strategies to foster continued growth, balancing encouragement with structure, and every interaction reinforced a developing rhythm of partnership and mutual understanding, a delicate dance of guidance that shaped the environment around us. Later, as I watched Vincent gently engage with Ethan in a brief, playful exchange, the boys' laughter echoing in the room, I realized how profoundly the combination of observation, patience, and subtle intervention could transform daily moments into lasting impressions of security and trust. Returning home in the late morning, I reflected on the intricate web of interactions, the small gestures of attention, the careful monitoring of needs, and the shared commitment to nurture and stability that bound us together, a tapestry of care that highlighted the unseen yet undeniable impact of deliberate empathetic presence in the lives of those we guide, leaving me with a profound sense of fulfillment and a quiet eagerness for what the next day might reveal. The late afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the study, casting warm golden hues across the room as I sat quietly reviewing Ethan's progress, the soft rustle of papers and the distant hum of life outside blending into a calm backdrop, creating a space of reflection and anticipation. Vincent's presence was steady nearby, his posture relaxed yet attentive, an aura of quiet authority that reassured without overwhelming, his subtle gestures conveying care and concern in a way that harmonized with the gentle rhythm of our environment, a balance between guidance and respect for boundaries that had grown increasingly natural over the past weeks. As I observed Vincent interact with Ethan during a brief reading exercise, the boy's enthusiasm and laughter illuminated the room, highlighting the trust and comfort that had been nurtured through patient observation and supportive engagement, a testament to the careful, deliberate approach both Vincent and I had cultivated. Later, we discussed plans for a shared educational activity, our conversation flowing easily, punctuated by thoughtful pauses as we considered how to best foster growth, independence, and confidence in Ethan while maintaining a secure and stable environment. The dialogue reflecting mutual understanding and a shared commitment to nurturing his development. Stepping outside for a brief walk, the air carried the crispness of early evening, the distant sounds of city life mingling with the softer, more personal moments of connection between us, reinforcing the sense of shared responsibility and silent communication that underpinned our interactions, each glance and small movement loaded with unspoken support and careful attention. Returning indoors, the evening light shifted to softer tones, casting gentle shadows across the familiar furnishings, a reminder of continuity and the protective space we had built around Ethan, a space where small victories and daily progress were recognized and celebrated. As Vincent and I prepared dinner, coordinating tasks with quiet efficiency and occasional light-hearted comments, the ease of collaboration and mutual respect was evident, a rhythm that reflected not only our shared commitment to Ethan's well-being, but also an emerging understanding of each other's strengths, sensitivities, and approaches to care. Afterward, we settled into a quiet moment together, reviewing the day's events and planning for tomorrow, the soft glow of lamps providing comfort and the reassurance of routine, a gentle closure to a day filled with subtle victories, connection, and the careful weaving of trust, attention, and guidance, leaving a profound sense of fulfillment, anticipation, and the quiet knowledge that our efforts were shaping an environment of lasting security, encouragement, and support. As the first hints of dawn crept through the curtains, I could feel the quiet anticipation of a day that promised resolution and subtle victories, the room softly illuminated with gentle light that brought out the textures and warmth of our shared home, and as I glanced toward Vincent, his eyes met mine with a calm reassurance, a silent acknowledgement of the journey we had navigated together, the challenges, small triumphs, and careful steps we had taken to protect, nurture, and guide Ethan, whose laughter now echoed faintly from the adjoining room, a testament to the secure and joyful environment that had gradually become our routine, a rhythm of life filled with trust, attentiveness, and mutual respect. Together, we moved through the morning, each action deliberate yet natural, from preparing breakfast with coordinated ease to organizing tasks that would carry us through the day, our gestures subtle but meaningful, reflecting a deep understanding that had grown through shared responsibilities and silent communications, each glance, nod, and smile reinforcing a bond rooted in care and attentiveness, reinforcing the stability we provided for Ethan and for each other. Later, stepping out onto the quiet street, the air crisp and fresh with the early light, the city slowly awakening around us, we walked with measured steps, engaging in light conversation, laughing softly at small observations, our voices mingling harmoniously with the distant hum of morning life, a vivid representation of partnership built on shared values and mutual concern, an ongoing dance of connection that balanced support with independence, attention with freedom. Returning home, the day unfolded with moments of learning, play, and gentle guidance, each event reinforcing a pattern of calm, confidence, and reassurance. Vincent offering observations with measured clarity, his posture relaxed but attentive, the subtle gestures of support weaving seamlessly into the structure of daily routines, while I maintained an encouraging presence for Ethan, our combined influence shaping his sense of security and well-being in visible and lasting ways. By evening, the soft glow of lamps and the fading daylight created a serene atmosphere, the rhythm of the day settling into a quiet intimacy, a sense of accomplishment and forward momentum, our conversation turning to plans for the future, discussions of small goals and steps for continued growth, the comfort of shared responsibility and the gentle knowledge that our careful, patient guidance had produced a stable, nurturing environment, a foundation for trust and continued connection. As we prepared for the night, the subtle calm of our home reflected the culmination of careful effort, the quiet assurance of partnership, and the satisfaction of a day well navigated, leaving a lasting impression of shared purpose, mutual respect, and the quiet joy of watching Ethan thrive under the protective, loving presence of two attentive, committed guides.